Great. Good evening, everybody. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Wilmette, and the meeting will please come to order. I want to start out tonight by stating that we're marking a milestone. This is our last planned remote meeting of the Village Board. Our next Village Board meeting will be held in person at Village Hall. I want to take this opportunity to thank our village staff, in particular Peter Skiles and Karen Mearsman, for coordinating the broadcast and streaming of our remote meetings. Thank you for all the technical assistance to the trustees, the boards and commissions, and to our residents, so we could have seamless participation and discussions during our meetings, even though we were apart. I know that we all look forward to getting back together in person, but I'm grateful we've had the opportunity to have these remote opportunities available to us. So I think we can go ahead and start. I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Jaya.
Present.
Trustee Sullivan.
Here.
Trustee Shepherd.
Present.
Trustee Dodd.
Here.
Trustee Kennedy.
Here.
Trustee Barrow.
Here.
And President Plunkett.
Here. I've just muted everybody at the meeting. So if you want to speak, please unmute yourself. We have a quorum. This meeting is being conducted remotely via Microsoft Teams software. I will now ask Peter Skiles, our Director of Administrative Services, to explain some of the logistics to members of the public joining us tonight.
Thank you, President Plunkett. Okay, so like President Plunkett just said, everybody should have started the meeting tonight muted. I'm going to go ahead and just double check that real quick and make sure it's set. And when President Plunkett calls for public comments tonight, those joining us with the Teams, the Microsoft Teams client, can provide that commentary by clicking on the microphone icon up on the meeting toolbar to unmute yourself. And depending on what software you're using tonight or what device you're joining on, that microphone icon may be up near the top right of the screen or possibly down near the bottom right of the screen. And those joining by audio conference, I see we have at least a couple here tonight. You can toggle your mute status on your telephone by pressing *6. And it's important to note that only attendees can unmute themselves. Nobody can help unmute you if you're muted. And just a reminder that if you have any technical difficulties providing your comments tonight, you can head over to the YouTube live channel and type in your comments there. They will be acknowledged and then read back into the record here at an appropriate time by a village staff person. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Skiles. So those watching this video in the future, the state of Illinois is currently under a gubernatorial disaster proclamation issued by Governor Pritzker due to the coronavirus global pandemic. As a result, all in-person village governmental meetings have been canceled. As I said before, we shall be resuming soon. However, the state has amended the Open Meetings Act to permit electronic meetings of governmental bodies like the Village Board. We are conducting our business tonight in compliance with the new provisions of state law. This meeting is being broadcast live on the internet at www.youtube.com, user villageofwilmette.live. A recording of the meeting will be archived on the village's YouTube website, as we do with all other televised public meetings. A remote meeting obviously requires a different mechanic for public participation, so to ensure our residents, business owners, and other interested parties have the opportunity to participate in this meeting, we have solicited some public comment prior to the start of the meeting. If you've sent an email to publiccomment@wilmette.com, your email has been provided to the board members and it will be included in the minutes, but will not be read during the meeting. Members of the public who are watching the broadcast tonight can participate during our designated public comment periods by submitting comments through the YouTube live chat feature. A member of the village staff will read your comment to the village board. For those who have connected to the meeting via Microsoft Teams or the telephone, at the appropriate time, I will ask people to speak up if they'd like to make a public comment. I will first ask people to identify themselves as someone who would like to address the board, and then I'll assemble a list and call on individuals person by person. You will have 3 minutes to address the board, just as we would be in an in-person meeting. All comments from the public, regardless of how they are received, will be recorded into the meeting minutes. Before each meeting, the board receives a packet of agenda materials. These materials are also posted on womack.com on the Friday before our meeting, so residents and other interested parties can review the same materials that the board members receive. So the next item on the agenda is item 2, public comment. At an in-person meeting during public comment, I would ask for a show of hands, and individuals would be allotted 3 minutes to address the board on an item which is not on the agenda. Public comments which were submitted by email in advance have been provided to the board. If there anybody watching on YouTube Live and you would like to submit a comment, please do so now. You can find the chat window to the right of the YouTube Live video window. And I will also ask if there are any members who have connected to the meeting via Microsoft Teams or via the telephone who would like to address the board. Could we have any of those people identify themselves now, or Mr. Ortega, any people from YouTube Live who would like to speak?
There is a comment on YouTube Live. It's from the Go Green Wilmette YouTube account. It reads, Go Green Wilmette would like to thank the trustees and village staff for their positive efforts to enforce our gas-powered leaf blower ordinances more effectively and fairly. Other than that, there are no other additional public comments.
Thank you. And I don't believe anybody connected via Teams would like to make a public comment. If so, you need to unmute yourself. Okay, so I think we'll move on to the consent agenda. Item number 3 on the agenda is the consent agenda. Items which are routine business that are normally not debated by the village board are placed on the consent agenda. All items beginning with a 3 are on the consent agenda. Tonight, the consent agenda consists of the items 3.1 through 3.22. Items on the consent agenda are up for approval tonight if an item is not removed by a member of the audience and is not removed by one of the trustees. The item will be approved and it will not be discussed. So let me begin by asking if there is any member of the audience who would like to remove an item from the consent agenda. Those watching on YouTube Live should submit their requests, and any individuals who have connected to the meeting via Microsoft Teams or via the telephone, please identify yourself now. Mr. Ortega, anybody from YouTube Live would like to remove an item from the consent agenda?
No, there are no requests on YouTube Live.
Thank you. And not seeing or hearing any member of the audience, I will now ask if there are any of the trustees who would like to remove an item from the consent agenda.
Yes, President Plunkett. It's Trustee Sullivan, and I would like to remove Land Use Committee item number 3.6, which is case number 2021 Z19.
Okay, thank you. Any other trustees would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay. Hearing none, may I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda minus land use case listed as 3.6?
So moved. Kate?
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Trustee Barrow, I saw you first. Okay, would the clerk please call the roll on the motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Trustee Jaya,
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan,
Aye.
Trustee Shepherd,
Aye.
Trustee Dodd,
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy,
Aye.
Trustee Barrow,
Aye.
and President Plunkett. President Plunkett, you are still on mute.
Thank you. Motion carries. The consent agenda has been adopted, minus item 3.6, which we will discuss later. If you are here for an item on the consent agenda, it has been approved. It has been approved. To clarify for people who are watching tonight, all of the items beginning with the 3, except for 3.6, have been approved, including land use committee items. Let's see where we started. 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, and 3.10 have been approved. If you are here for one of those items, it has been approved. There'll be no further discussion of those items or any of the other items on the consent agenda, save the one. So you are free to log off or hang up, but of course you are more than welcome to watch the rest of the meeting. Now moving on to number 4, I have a proclamation to start with. And it'll be the first time that the Village of Wilmette has recognized the LGBTQ plus Pride Month in the Village of Wilmette. So we're very excited. So I'm going to read our proclamation. Whereas all residents deserve to be treated with dignity, respect, compassion, and justice, regardless of gender, age, race, religion, economic status, or sexual orientation. And whereas the Village of Wilmette supports the rights of every individual to experience equality of treatment and values our diverse population of residents, businesses, and visitors, recognizing that this diversity is one of the community's greatest strengths. And whereas June is annually celebrated as Pride Month to commemorate the Stonewall Uprising in 1969, considered the catalyst of the modern LGBTQ plus rights movement. And whereas the Village of Wilmette is committed to protecting the civil rights of the LGBTQ plus community to create a more open and just society. And whereas individuals are encouraged to learn more about the LGBTQ plus community and to celebrate this month to recognize the contributions that LGBTQ plus individuals have made to our society. Now, therefore, I, Senta Plunkett, Village President of Wilmette, Illinois, proclaim June 2021 as LGBTQ plus Pride Month and call upon all people of Wilmette, Illinois to learn more about the LGBTQ plus community and to celebrate this month. Thank you, everybody. Next, we'll move on to the report from our village manager, Mr. Brayman.
Thank you, President Plunkett. And before I start, it looks like we have a couple guests who are unmuted. So I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody. So whoever speaks next will just have to unmute themselves when they're up. Okay, so I do have 2 brief items here. The first is that Village Hall will be reopening to normal hours Monday through Friday, starting on Monday, June 14th. So we'll be open from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And we look forward to welcoming all of our residents back in the building at any time during the day. I also would like to share that the Human Relations Commission's inaugural listening session has been rescheduled. It was initially set for this coming Saturday. It will now be held on Sunday, June 27th from 1 to 3 p.m. outside of our Village Hall. We'll be using our e-news, our social media, and various other channels to make sure we inform our residents of this change. And that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you. Next, do we have a report from our Corporation Counsel, Mr. Stein?
No report, Madam President.
Report of the Liquor Control Commissioner. There is no report tonight. So we will move on to 6.0, which is our standing committee reports. First up is the Land Use Committee. Trustee Barrow? Oh, you're on mute, Trustee Barrow.
There we go. First up is the item number 3.6 removed from the consent agenda. And I move to approve Zoning Board of Appeals case number 2021-Z-19, 1605 Elmwood Avenue, regarding a request for a 126.47 square foot, 2.66% lot coverage variation, a 1.5 foot side yard setback variation, a 2.58 foot combined side yard setback variation, a 2.58-foot combined side yard chimney setback variation, and a 2.58-foot combined side yard window well setback variation to permit the construction of a new home in accordance with the plan submitted, adoption of ordinance number 2021-0-28.
Is there a second?
Second.
Trustee Shepherd? Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded, excuse me. Trustee Sullivan, you asked that item 3.6 be removed from the consent agenda. Would you like to give a brief explanation?
Yeah, no, and I appreciate this. And look, this is one I read and was a little bit conflicted because as I read the case and read the minutes, what jumped out at me was it's obviously a new construction and the number of variances. So that obviously caught my eye, and I dug into it a little bit deeper. And what was a little bit concerning was in the packet of minutes, I think actually it lacked a little bit of details to give me comfort on why to support this and why this should be consistent. Now, obviously, and I think we shared with the village board that there was additional information that Mr. Adler shared, and which was helpful. And I understand, there's a benefit here of a new construction, and they're not building it to the maximum height. And I think it's less than 6 feet of what code is. In some ways, unfortunately, this owner started out very well intentioned, needed a new garage, which we approved, and that was consistent. Started to remodel the house, but unfortunately, as they started to break apart the house, they found that it was unsalvageable, and so had to go back and build a new house, and as a result, lost a little bit of extra bonus. So I understand all of that. I think what is still concerning to me is the amount of variances for new construction. I think even though we started out well-intentioned, we're still building a new house, and when I read in minutes that it's just 2 feet, that's minimal. New construction is there for a reason, and we don't want to, in my opinion, add too much density when we have an opportunity. There was talk about that the lot size being narrow was the hardship. That I don't agree with that, because I think we do have narrow lots, and our code is written to build appropriately homes that fit the character and keep the density there and the size. And sometimes there are narrow lots in the village, and we need 2 and 3 bedroom houses. This is a 4-bedroom house. And I just wish that there was more minimization. The setbacks, I can understand with the window wells and the safety, whether there's a bedroom in the basement or not. I think that's appropriate. And, but the fireplace and really the lot coverage jumped out at me, because the lot coverage, and we're going to talk later tonight about all the work we've done on stormwater. In this case, we're building more than what our code allowed. So, like I said, I was conflicted on this one. I think there was a little bit of lack of discussion, and it was sort of, the hardship, and I didn't see really it took a little bit more work for me to understand why do we support this, and ultimately, I think it's zoning code number 2 or section 2, where this was created by the owner, albeit the existing house is out of compliance. The new house and the variations are a result of this project, and I just couldn't get there on why should we support this in this case? And again, what I felt was just other well-intentioned and narrow lot. This was a hard one for me to support.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Sullivan. This did receive unanimous support from the Zoning and Board of Appeals. I understand Trustee Sullivan has concerns. I'm not sure if other trustees have concerns or would like to hear a summary from Mr. Adler that might be helpful right now. Okay, Mr. Adler, could you talk about this particular case?
Sure. As Trustee Barrow mentioned, Trustee Sullivan mentioned, this is the second time the applicant's been before us this year. They were before us in January of 2021, and at that time they got the variation for the garage, which included a number of rear yard coverage variations for that garage. It's a 34-foot wide lot, so that's not unexpected to have a two-car garage require that sort of relief. At that time, they also received a number of variations as it relates to setbacks, because the existing house is approximately 2.5 feet at its closest on the west side lot line. The applicant got a building permit, started construction. I believe there was some confusion with the work that was being done and the understanding of the applicant and the architect and our plan reviewer. And ultimately, the outside finishing of the structure, the stucco was removed. And at that time, once the stucco was removed, the calculation to determine whether it's a new home or not exceeded that 50%. And so the applicant was then challenged with whether they're going to ask for a variation to continue with their addition with their house at that 2.5-foot setback. The 2.5-foot setback does provide some building code issues. If you're closer than 3 feet to a lot line, you're going to have issues with windows and openings, and you're going to have to do something a little bit different. Also, I believe that the home is proposed had some construction techniques that would have required a sprinkler to be put in because it's now new construction, and a new water service line to be installed. The applicant decided that they wished to proceed with this request for the new home, which you have before you, which did do a couple of things. It did increase the west side yard by 1 foot to be 3.5 feet, but it also widened the house slightly. I believe, and the applicant could correct me if I'm wrong, they went from a 22-foot wide home to a 24-foot wide home. And I think ultimately that, and the fact that they lost the 200 square foot lot coverage bonus when this went from an addition to a new home, they lost that bonus. I think that ultimately is what resulted that slight increase in width and them needing the lot coverage variation. I don't know if there's a lot more that I could add. I could answer any questions you might have about the existing house and what's being proposed, lot coverage or floor area.
Mr. Adler, could you clarify the difference in the floor area if they had done an addition with that 200-foot bonus versus this new home that they are requesting?
Sure. I believe that the addition the applicant was proposing was little over 100 square feet under what the total, I should take a step back. While the lot coverage changes when you're looking at an existing home in this district, if you're looking at an existing home in this district, you get 200 square feet more of lot coverage. So with the addition, they were permitted 1,719 square feet of lot coverage. As a new home, they're permitted 1,519 square feet as a new home, so 200 square feet less. The floor area doesn't change. For a new home and for an addition to an existing home in this district, the total floor area that's permitted is approximately 2,650 square feet. Both the proposal tonight and the previous addition were conforming to that. The addition was a little bit smaller because the house was 2 feet less in width. So this, I believe this is probably about 100 square feet more than the addition was proposed because of that additional width in the home.
And Mr. Adler, why do we remove the 200 square foot bonus when remodeling versus new construction?
I'm trying to think the logic behind it. I think one of the reasons is it's one of the things that maybe we encourage people to keep older homes. I think that's, part of the intentions. There's other parts of our code. We allow an existing home to have a higher first floor than a new house. Typically, there's other things in the code that we allow a little bit more flexibility for existing construction, and I think it's to somewhat to encourage those older homes to be saved.
Thank you. Are there, if there aren't any more questions for Mr. Adler?
There's one other thing that I would point out. We do have other districts where almost all the lots are smaller in size. There are lots that are smaller than 50 feet wide. When it comes to the setbacks, this home, I think the homes on either side and some homes down the block are all around 33, 34 feet in width, and they're in an area where we calculate all setbacks at a minimum of a 50-foot wide lot. And we do have 6 homes on the south side of this block where the lot widths are narrow, and they're subject to a greater setback requirement than they would be if they were in an area of more homes of the similar width. It's just this is one of the times in which we couldn't write something specifically for these lots because the majority of lots are bigger than 34 feet in width.
Thank you. Are there any trustee questions for Mr. Adler at this time? Would the applicant like?
Actually, I do. Sorry, President Plunkett, because so then I might about face on what you just said, Mr. Adler. Then am I wrong? And is the hardship really the lot size, given they're one of a few at a 35 foot, and our code is written for 50-foot lots?
Right. I would say arguably the setbacks. Yes, I would arguably say the setbacks. That could be the case. We see it with lots that are 25 feet wide, 20 feet wide, 40 feet. You're almost getting wide enough. It's less of a hardship to be subject to a 5-foot setback and a 12.5-foot combined setback. But when you're 34 feet, it's pretty difficult. And as we know, the existing house is 22 feet wide. The proposed house is 24 feet wide, which is for Wilmette still a narrow house.
I knew you were holding back on some zinger for me for this meeting. It's that
Sorry.
psychedelic lighting you got going on back there.
Yeah. Last time you'll see it, I promise.
So, I'm not sure, we could have the applicant speak. I don't know, Trustee Sullivan, do you still have concerns? Should we see if any of the other trustees have concerns over this case? It would only need 4 votes in approval to go forward with the variances.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, obviously, if any other trustee has concerns, but I actually think that last point, John, was a good one to help me understand. So before you had said that, I was no, but I'm supportive now. And actually, I do want to compliment the applicant. I know it's a tough situation. I think they tried to do everything they could. And so I can support it based on what you just told me.
Do any of the other trustees, we feel generally supportive?
Can I just ask a quick question? I just wanted to make sure, and it doesn't mean I'm not supportive, I just want to make sure I understood, because I thought I heard Trustee Sullivan say when they siding off, the house was no longer structurally viable, but I heard Mr. Adler say that it was once they took the stucco off, they no longer were in compliance with the variation. They suddenly became a new construction variance house because they had done too much work essentially on the house. Is that so? Do I just understand that correctly?
Yeah, the applicant could answer. I don't think the house became impossible to fix up and do an addition. I think and the applicant could answer. I think ultimately it just made more sense at that point with the new requirements that a new home would require to go the new home route. Just given the proximity of the home to the west lot line and other issues with old basements, things like that.
I could add that my neighbor to the, it's Greg Braun, the owner of the home. My neighbor to the west is quite happy with this new proposal because he gets an extra foot for the side yard setback. So, you know, that was another factor in doing this.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. Do any other trustees have any questions, I guess either for the applicant or Mr. Adler?
This is Trustee Kennedy. I don't have any questions, but I did want to say that I appreciate Trustee Sullivan's concern about variations with new homes, because I share his skepticism about them. In this particular case, I don't have a problem, but I do think we should keep an eye on this, and I'm grateful for Trustee Sullivan looking at this more carefully than I did.
I would add, I definitely think this is an exception where we normally don't grant variances to new construction, so that does stand out. But after hearing all the facts in this case, I think that they're coming up with, you know, the best possible solution for that lot.
I agree.
So I'm gonna.
This is Trustee. Can I ask a question? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I concur with what obviously all the trustees have said about this is a unique situation, and I too generally don't agree with any variations on a new home. I do have just one more question for Mr. Adler, which is similar to what Trustee Jaya was saying. So I just want to understand, would we have approved, had we known at the very beginning that this was going to end up being a full addition as opposed to just a remodel, would we have approved the variation for the rear yard coverage for the setbacks?
I think
so. I just want to make sure we're not. I guess my question is, you know, you're right that we made some decisions initially and approved some variations because we thought it was going to be a remodel and they made sense. But I do think now we do need to address this as though it's
sure. And I think that we were talking about a separate accessory structure. So really, I don't think they were the thinking through in granting or recommending and then ultimately granting the variation for the garage, those rear yard coverage. I don't believe it was tied to the fact that they were doing an addition and a remodel. I think it's something we typically have seen on lots less than 40, 35 feet in width, where you really can't get a two-car garage in without granting the impervious rear yard impervious surface coverage relief.
Well, so that's saying that any lot, but that's, so I guess by you saying that, I guess, John, what I'm trying to understand is that would imply that we would allow for new construction, we would allow these impervious surface variations. And is that really what we're trying to do?
I think with new construction where we require a two-car garage for new construction, and I'm pretty confident.
And so if that ends up,
you know, there have been times which on these narrower lots, we've had to give relief to garages for projects that were new construction. So you know, there are occasions where something related to new construction, whether it's a detached garage or on really narrow lots, before we changed some of the districts to have the setbacks be more in conformance with those narrower widths. But these types of lots that fall into districts where you still have a 5-foot setback on one side, you know, it wouldn't surprise me that, you know, a variation might be required. There are a couple of lots that were really lacking in depth that we granted variations for new homes, just because you couldn't really build anything conforming because the setbacks made the buildable area so small. And so there are
the setbacks on the garage or the setbacks?
Again, I think the garage stands by itself, and regardless if it's new construction or if it's an addition, when it's new construction, as is in this case, we require a 2-car garage. We require 2 of the spaces to be enclosed. So either we're going to grant a variation to that requirement, or we're going to grant a variation to allow the garage to be bigger. I think it's been our history to grant the variation to allow the garage to be bigger than to say to somebody, you only have to build a 2-car garage. With an addition, if you're doing an addition.
I guess what I'm asking. I guess what I'm trying to understand is if we're requiring a 2-car garage, just because that's what we're requiring.
Kathy, we lost.
Can you guys hear me or not?
No.
No.
A delay.
Can you hear? Can you guys?
Hey, John, well, she's working on her connection.
Yeah.
Well, she's working on her connection. On the garage, if they had asked for a 20 by 20 garage versus the 22 by 22, we'd still have the rear yard coverage, correct?
Yes, there was really no way to do a conforming 2-car garage.
And we gave them the 22 by 22 because whenever 3-4 years ago we looked, and those are the appropriate sizes of garages today, and plus that gets cars off the street.
Right, and allows storage and cars off the street.
Right. Okay. I tried to delay as long as I could for Kathy to reboot her system.
Well, while she's working, I'll simply add that I do think this is a unique situation and really not precedent for new construction generally. I don't expect that you'll see this confluence of facts generally for new construction. So I appreciated the reticence of some of the people that were on the zoning board, particularly Chairman Schneider's comments, but I'm supportive of what's being requested here.
Trustee Dodd, were you able to get back on? Well, I'm going to take this moment then to ask if there's any members of the public either joining us through YouTube Live or through Microsoft Teams that wanted to make a comment on this case. Okay, I don't see anybody on Microsoft Teams, Mr. Artiega. I'm going to assume there's nobody on YouTube Live, but.
Correct, no comments on YouTube.
Okay. Okay, Trustee Dodd, I see your icon back. Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, did you want to finish your comments?
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you now, yes.
I think what I was just trying to understand was if we require a 2-car garage and that requires people to go over the lot coverage variance, are we allowing that as a variance for new homes?
Yeah, I believe we have. Again, it would be.
In my mind, what we should be doing is then requiring a smaller home to be built so that they don't go over the lot coverage. I believe that's a little bit where Trustee Sullivan was going. I think we understand some of the variances on the rear yard.
Yeah, what I was referring is the rear yard coverage. I wasn't referring to the lot coverage. I was referring to the rear yard coverage that was granted previously in January of 2021 for the garage.
Okay, but isn't this home requiring a lot coverage variance?
This home is requiring a lot coverage variation, correct?
Any further questions of the trustees? Okay, well, I would let the applicant speak again. I do believe we have a concurrence here, so I don't want to take up more of the applicant's time, but are we generally in agreement on this and we don't need to hear from the applicant again? Maybe a nod. Okay, so I think since we had no public comment and the trustees' questions have been answered, as I said, I do think this is a unique case, and the applicant has really tried to mimic the existing home in a new home and has, minimized the height and the size, and that the neighbor appreciates that the home has been shifted over. I think that, and we probably won't have too many cases where we, have variances for new construction, but every now and then it's necessary. So I'd ask the clerk to please call a vote on this. It did receive unanimous support from the zoning board, so we would just need 4 yeses to approve this motion.
Trustee Jaya,
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan,
Aye.
Trustee Shepherd,
Aye.
Trustee Dodd,
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy,
Aye.
Trustee Barrow,
Aye.
and President Plunkett.
Aye. Thank you. So this has been passed, and so if we adopted the ordinance tonight, it's not just an introduction? Is
That's
that
correct. It's done.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So the ordinance has been adopted. Thank you, everyone. Trustee Barrow, back to land use.
Very good. Our next item is item 6.11. And here I move to approve zoning Board of Appeals case number 2021-Z-16, 424 Linden Avenue, regarding a request for a special use to allow the replacement of a discontinued legal non-conforming commercial use with a specialty restaurant, Luigi's Dress Shop, in accordance with the plan submitted. The use shall run with the use.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Trustee Kennedy? So this item comes to us with a 3-3 vote from the Zoning Board of Appeals, which equates to a negative recommendation. So it will need 5 votes tonight to overturn the recommendation of the Zoning Board. And I think I'd like to outline the order that we will take this case this evening. First off, I will ask Corporation Counsel Jeff Stein to discuss the liquor license application portion of this. I think that is a big part of this case. Secondly, Mr. Adler to summarize the zoning issues. We can then hear from the applicant, ask the trustees if they have any questions. Then members of the audience might have questions or concerns. We'll do a final word from the applicant, then back to the trustees if there's any final discussion. Then we'll vote on it. So Mr. Stein, could you please start us off with a discussion of the liquor license the applicant is requiring?
So thank you very much, President Plunkett. I will not have cats or lights in my presentation here, so maybe next week if we were remote, I try to one-up John. So briefly on the liquor license, and this is obviously very important to what also the zoning relief that's being sought, as they are really corollary. The applicant has proposed what is a really unique concept, not really just in Wilmette, but throughout Illinois. It is a concept where the business will create cocktails from their own ingredients and what would otherwise be a prepackaged alcoholic beverage, mix them and repackage them into some sort of vessel, which would be discussed a little bit more below, and then delivered. The other component of this, the second component, is also to allow for a private party or tastings of the same liquor that's being, or the same cocktail that is being crafted. So this being unique, obviously we did not have a zoning classification that would fit to what they wanted to do based upon their business plan. So we had to create one. The Judiciary Committee met and provided a unanimous recommendation to allow it with certain conditions. So as you can see in the memo, I'll go through it a little bit, but the village code, I'm proposing that we amend the village code to create definitions, which would include cocktail, which is mirrored from the state definition, as well as the sealed, a sealed container and a tamper-proof or tamper-evident lid. Those are mirrored directly from the state. They're not, I didn't create these, and they will be used, I think, now throughout the state of Illinois and other municipalities, now that the Illinois Liquor Commission is going to use those as well. As far as the delivery of cocktails, we have allowed delivery of cocktails under our emergency declaration for our restaurants, where they're allowed to deliver. I think the big one is always Depot has margaritas that they deliver in these sealed containers that are tamper-proof and they have certain labeling on them. Also, the state has allowed this. The state took a little while to do it throughout the pandemic. In fact, it was June 2nd of 2020 that this was officially allowed, and it was under a trial basis for 1 year. At the time the Judiciary Committee met, that state statute had not been extended, but it was extended as on June 1st. And it created, again, now a more permanent provision. And when I say permanent, it's actually still temporary, but a more permanent provision to allow for the delivery of cocktails. This can now go to January 1st of 2024. And it may be extended from there, it may not be, but it is what the Liquor Control Commissioner attorney said to me. He said they need a little bit more of a trial run and get some data to see if this is something that's going to work for the state. But as that is right now, the provisions that are in place are the ones that I'm proposing that we just make part of our village code to allow for this use. And those are, that the cocktails would be filled and bottled by the licensee. They would be contained in a sealed container that with a tamper-proof lid, so you can't open it, close it, and open it again. It essentially becomes the package as if you were buying it off the shelf in a Jewel. It has to be labeled with the ingredients of the cocktail, the licensee's name, the liquor license numbers, both the state and local numbers, address and contact information, also the volume of the container, and the date in which the container was sealed. If the container had been sealed 7 days before it was to be sold, it cannot be sold. It has to be sold within 7 days of the cocktail being bottled. The cocktails must be delivered by the licensee. Now, this was a little bit of a shift and a change in the last bit, the last change in the state statute. DoorDash and Uber Eats and Grubhub and all those cannot deliver cocktails in Illinois. There can be no third-party delivery services allowed for this. The cocktails must be delivered by the licensee, and that's the owner, an officer, director, shareholder, or an employee of the licensee. And that employee or that member of the licensee must be BASSET trained. That's the state training to determine if someone is giving you a proper ID and is 21 years of age. It can only be delivered to someone that is 21 years of age or older, and they must verify the age of the individual receiving the cocktail. Finally, this is unique in the fact that it's not a manufacturing license, although it could be considered one in a way. Therefore, I do believe that we should put a restriction on there that the sale can only go to the end user. This can't be used to supply our local restaurants or neighboring communities' restaurants because they don't have a manufacturing license. And for this particular location, I don't think we want to have any kind of manufacturing type of location there, a type of use there. So that's really the nutshell for the delivery of cocktails. It's not something that's unheard of in the last year. Restaurants have been doing it. The tamper-proof seal, the containers are now common and able to be sealed and properly transported. So that's for the delivery issue. The other issue that was also unique is this private event issue. And the private event issue is unique because the applicant's proposing to not have any food service whatsoever. Now, we would allow private events, and we do in some of our club licenses, as well as restaurants are allowed to have private events, but food must also be available for service. And that is not the case here. What the applicant, and I'll let them talk a little more about their business plan, but what they're proposing is that essentially that they provide a tasting of the cocktails that have been created and are available for delivery. So some of the conditions that we put in there are really the conditions that the applicant has said they would self-impose, but they all did make sense to put in there, and the village definitely wants some regulatory authority to do so, to enforce this, instead of just going on the word of the applicant. So as part of the criteria to allow for this, we're going to limit the number of patrons. And the space, according to the applicant, can't hold more than 10 patrons. So we're going to limit the number of patrons. We're also going to limit the number of events that can take place. That's both in that day, only be one event in a day, and also during the week. That would be Wednesdays through Sundays would be allowed. So there's no events to be held on Mondays and Tuesdays. But most importantly, also would be the times. The time would be cannot start before 4 p.m. and cannot end after 8 p.m. Reservations must be made at least 24 hours in advance for the private event, so it doesn't turn into what was referred to at the committee as a social club, where you can just walk in and say, hey, okay, give me one of your cocktails. It has to be a reservation in advance, at least 24 hours, and it can only again be one a night. And the only service can be the cocktails that are created for the purpose of being delivered. This would not allow someone to also say, well, I'd like to have a glass of beer, a bottle of beer, or a glass of wine. This is not a package. This is not going to allow, this license would not allow that, I'm sorry. So it would only be those cocktails that are crafted, nothing else. So this really does fit what the applicant is requesting. These are the conditions that were provided by the applicant that we believe matches what we would need to ensure that a proper operation is being handled. Again, the sale of alcohol also for the delivery would only be from 4 to 8. It would not be allowed any time before or after. And essentially this amendment doesn't need to be allowed by the village board. This isn't an open license. This is something that the board would have to consider and is considering tonight to determine whether or not we want to expand our liquor license venues, and in this case, it does have some severe limitations on it. It would be, I would think, a unique use. I don't think there's any other type of facility or use that would allow for this to happen. Also, one other thing is that John's going to talk about the zoning relief on this. I do believe that the special use, if granted, should be conditioned to mirror what the operation is being proposed and what's allowed under the liquor license. So it doesn't turn into anything that wouldn't require a liquor license, like a restaurant or some other type of food service. So those are the criteria in a nutshell. The ordinance as drafted would create this new category. It would increase the category to only one license being open, and I'm proposing a $500 license fee only because that was the least amount besides a temporary license, which is only $25. That can of course be changed as anybody sees fit. So I'm happy to turn this over to John or answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Stein, just to clarify, this license would only be for delivery and not for carryout?
That's correct. The way it's drafted, it is delivery only. Carry out, I believe, was not necessarily requested. It was discussed at the committee, but it was never fully vetted. I do believe there would be an additional traffic component there that we may want to curtail.
So tonight that's not on the table for tonight. We're discussing delivery and the private events within the hours described.
Well, I mean, as drafted, it's delivery. Of course, you guys can, the board can discuss expanding this and direct me to change the ordinance in any way it sees fit.
Any questions for Mr. Stein right now? Okay. Mr. Adler, then could you kind of describe the zoning issues in this case?
Sure, I will. I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. As was mentioned, this is a special use. It's a special use to allow replacement of a discontinued legal non-conforming commercial use. And in this case, it's for what we would classify this a specialty restaurant, which could be any business that sells a specialty food or beverage item. And in this case, it's a beverage item. It's proposed at 424 Linden in a space that a number of years ago housed an art repair store. It's in a building that, while zoned commercial when it was built, and I believe up in through the 60s, was rezoned to R3, which is a multifamily designation at this point. The primary question for the board to consider is, does the special use meet the standards for review? If it does, you'll approve it. And assuming the liquor license gets approved also, Luigi's Dress Shop could operate in conformance with the plan submitted and any conditions imposed on the approval. If no, it's denied and the applicant will not be permitted to open. Here's the special use standards. We won't go through them, but I could refer back to them if you would like to during your discussion. You've seen these a number of times. This was a split vote. There were 3 members who voted for it, 2 members who voted against it, but as the village board knows, to get a positive recommendation from the zoning board, you need 4 votes. So even though a majority of the members present voted for it, it still comes as a negative recommendation requiring 5 members of the village board to vote in favor to overturn the zoning board's recommendation. I won't read the finding of fact, but again, we could revisit this. This is obviously in your report. Then there was the finding of 2 members of the board who felt that it didn't meet the special use standards. I provided the zoning map here. I also have the aerial, which shows in context to the Linden Square commercial area and then the adjacent multifamily residential to the south and to the east, and then the single family residential west of the building. That's a plat survey of the building. The area that we're talking about for Luigi's is in the southeast corner of that building fronting on Linden. And this is the floor plan of the building. And you can see it's a relatively small space. Any questions before I get rid of the presentation? Anything you want me to revisit on the presentation? Any questions for staff?
Mr. Adler, could you just briefly describe why this is a special use? I know we had a recent discussion at land use about having vacant commercial properties be able to be used again, and just a little bit about the character of this neighborhood.
Sure. This commercial space was fairly unique in that it's remained vacant for such a long time. Previous to the recent text amendment, if a commercial use in a residential district were to vacate, provided that within 180 days of vacating, the owner of the building could request a special use, basically for any use, to go back into that commercial space. After 180 days, the way our ordinance treated properties like this is they no longer could be used for a commercial purpose. It's problematic for a building like this where the space has obviously and historically been commercial. We also have a couple of these similar spaces along Ridge Road where we had antique stores, and I think right now we have an office in one of the historic buildings on Ridge Road that in a residential district, but it was designed for commercial space on the first floor. Then our one district, which is the commercial district to the east, historically has been a district in which provided goods and services to the neighborhood. Up until 10, 15 years ago, you had a drugstore, you had a hardware store, you had a small grocery store. We had another small grocery store, a gourmet grocery store. I'll make a go of it for a couple of years, but they weren't successful. Recently, it's turned into a more service-oriented neighborhood. We don't know if that's necessarily what the future holds for the district. It's one of the areas in the comprehensive plan we're going to look closely at. My guess is that there's some in the neighborhood who'd love to see some more of those supportive retail uses in the neighborhood, and maybe less service, be it medical or other types of uses like that. Again, I don't have the exact year that this property was rezoned, but going out to 5th Street there, that was zoned commercial, and again was rezoned in the, I believe it was in the 60s or 70s, from what was a commercial district, which was along with mixed-use buildings along Linden to residential or to multifamily buildings.
Thank you. Any questions? Any other questions for Mr. Adler?
I have a question. Is there any reason to think that the activities that are proposed for the space now would create more noise or more of a nuisance for the tenants in the building than what was there before?
It would be my guess, probably not, just the way it's been limited. It's interesting, we've heard uses that are, it could be a karate dojo, in the Sound of Karate dojo. There's businesses that teach dance, and we hear complaints because there's music that come from, the music they're playing. So you never know, but I think there's typical types of businesses that would locate in this space, and I think some would generate more noise and traffic than what's proposed here. Some would maybe generate less noise and traffic with what's proposed here, but I don't think it's atypical, for this type of space.
And just one more question. It seemed to me from looking at the maps and so forth that you're talking about a new commercial space that's just basically steps from other commercial space. It's not as though this is blocks and blocks away from another commercial area. Is that correct?
Correct. And again, this was space that was part of the same commercial area until it was rezoned. So yes, that is correct. And it's vacant, but it still was laid out and created for commercial space. It wasn't. It's my understanding it's never been used for a residential purpose.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Great. So would the applicant like to say a few words and describe the project? Obviously, we've read about it in our packets, and the Judiciary Committee, heard about it, but it would be great if the applicant would want to say a few words here.
Sure. Hi, I'm Blair Cook. This is Mary Rose McManus, and we're very excited about doing something like this. We think it would be really cool for 4th and Linden, and I know that there's been some concern about noise, but that's not the kind of clientele we're going to have. This is not going to be where you walk in off the street and take off with booze. It's just not going to be that way. And the way we want to decorate the outside is just going to be beautiful. We're going to have awnings and gowns in the window, and they're for sale. And it would be the nicest thing on the street. And I've been thinking about it for a very long time because I've been running my coffee house for 16 years, 200 feet away. And I've looked at this space for so long, and I thought, God, this is absolutely perfect to appear as a speakeasy, even though you're totally legitimate. I think it would be fun and really cool.
And I would just add, having listened to Mr. Stein and also Mr. Adler, what really struck me when I read the concerns of the community I read through the emails and other concerns that people had put forth. When I read through the statutes that would actually allow the liquor license, I think it's really important to note what a small type of thing this is. It's really a small space, as you can kind of see by the floor plan. I think that when we're talking about 10 people in there, 2 of them are Blair and myself. So I really think that according to the code, we could have a maximum of 8 people in there. And so I just wanted the community to know that it really is kind of a small operation. The majority of everything that we would be doing would be the delivery of the cocktails. And the private events would be, as is laid out in the statute, they would be pre-reserved, and it would be limited to people doing tastings for the cocktails. So it's really a very low-key space. Hopefully it'll look really beautiful. Blair gives me a lot of credit for having better taste than I really have. But, you know, we really plan on making it a beautiful dress shop. So in addressing the concerns, I really thought that the statute, the way that it was crafted, because again, I have my law office here, so I did read the statute. So I thought that it really protected the neighborhood against us making it into something that it isn't. And so I'm hoping that that will address the concerns of the people who live in the area, that really, according to the statute, we can't really, we're not just saying what we're going to do, we are held to that. So I just think that's important to note.
Thank you, Ms. McManus. Do any of the trustees have any questions for the applicants?
Actually, yes, I do have a question. I was not aware that they were going to be selling clothing out of the same space. Are you going to have changing rooms and people coming in and out to try on dresses, or how is it going to work?
You know, I own Exhibit Boutique here in the village. We're actually right behind there right now in my law office. And so I do have, if somebody is interested in the gowns, because really it's going to be very special gowns. It's not going to be like what I currently sell in my shop, is for the most part more casual daytime dresses and whatnot. These are going to be really special gowns that we'll be exhibiting in the windows. If someone is interested in buying them, there will not be any area really to change in that space. It's a very small space. I would want them to come to the shop probably and try that on. So, and we wouldn't have a bunch of them. It would be, you know, each one would be unique. But yes, they would of course be for sale. That's the part that I love. And so, but they could come over to my shop and do that.
So if I understand what you're saying, the gowns are only there for display, and if somebody wants to buy them, they go to your shop and they buy them through your shop. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Correct.
It's kind of like the front for the speakeasy. So it's going to be beautiful and fabulous, but really it's not supposed to be operating as a dress shop. But of course, I'm going to be picking hopefully some fabulous gowns that people will want to buy.
Thank you.
Following on, will you have some signage so people would know how to contact you, or how would that work?
Sure, the signage would have the phone number of the dress shop on there, and that is, if you wanted to call and order a cocktail, you can do that. It would primarily, as I see it, now it could all be phone calls, but as I said, it would be orders over the internet.
So we're planning on doing a very interesting website where, kind of like a speakeasy, you know, when you go to a speakeasy in any town, you're supposed to kind of have to fight to get in there a little bit. It's a little secretive. Sometimes there's a password. Sometimes there's a secret handshake or a song, whatever. So on the website, what we're probably going to try to do is make it a little bit mysterious so that someone has to click on a very particular gown when you go to the website. And that gown gets you into the ordering system for the speakeasy. And the other gowns maybe just bring you to gowns. But we want it to be a little bit in the spirit of a speakeasy so that there's a little bit of mystery. People start talking about it. You know, how do you get in? How do you, you know, so we do want a little bit of that mysterious speakeasy component to it.
I have a quick little question. The ordinance that we're considering tonight only permits delivery of the cocktails. Is that a concern at all to the applicants that someone cannot order a cocktail and then walk over or drive over and pick it up themselves?
No, not for me.
Blair's a wizard at delivery. He delivers probably thousands of scones every week, so.
I've been delivering quite a bit since the pandemic hit. I mean, sometimes I feel like it's a deleted scene from Mad Max or something, the way I have to get stuff done. But no, that's not a concern.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more?
Trustee Dodd, I have a question.
Yes.
I have one question. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I want to apologize that I don't have my video on, but I'm having some Wi-Fi issues. So, but I do have a question for Blair. Do you have a sense of, are you going to be doing only one cocktail per, if you want to order? And then just, do you have any sense of, what the volume is you're thinking here?
I'm sorry, Kathy, can you repeat that?
Like, is your thought that, you'll order a cocktail to be delivered and will you have a choice of cocktails or will it only be one cocktail? That you'll be doing one each night?
No, big choice. Well, not a huge choice, pardon me. Probably
You'll have a big choice.
15 to choose from that we will
and then
drop some and then add some that,
Okay.
drop what's not selling and add something new.
Yeah. And then is a sense of then like based on, I know this because I know you're an amazing deliverer, but so what's your sense of capacity that you might be doing in a given evening? Is it 20 deliveries? Just it might be helpful for people to have a sense of that.
I could say my sense would be 20. And if it was more than that,
Okay.
then you have to hire people that are under Bassett certification. If it got to that.
Okay. Right.
I'm sorry, Kathy, it's hard to hear you.
Yeah, I apologize.
Any other questions? Okay, so I will now bring this to, are there any members of the audience joining us tonight, either on YouTube or with Microsoft Teams, that have any questions for our staff or for the board? Or would like to comment? I'm sorry, I guess it's not really questions, but if they would like to make a comment.
This is Jim Randall, if you can hear me.
Yes, thank you.
I was wondering what areas would be open for delivery. Would this go to Winnetka? Would this go to Glenview? Would this go to Evanston? What scope will there be in general?
Our primary focus would be on the residents of Wilmette at first.
Okay. And in terms of and this is maybe a legal question, of the initial restrictions for the liquor license, can those be amended down the road? Can they be revisited? Can they be expanded in the future?
So yes, the village board has the right to change the liquor license to allow for the applicant to get, I guess, what would be a greater access or a different set of rights to serve liquor on site or something like that. But you still have to go through this same process where it had to still go to Judiciary Committee, have a hearing there, and then back to the village board for final approval, and an ordinance would need to be changed.
And Jeff, just to
Thank you.
clarify that, on a liquor license change, there would be no legal notice to the neighbors, correct?
That's correct. It's not a zoning code change or a public hearing, but there would be the same public notice that's given for any village board meeting like it is here or any committee meeting.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public would like to make a comment at this point? Mr. Ortega, anybody from YouTube Live?
No comments on YouTube Live.
Thank you. So, you know, the final word goes to the applicant, but you've made a nice presentation. So, you know, let me know if there's anything else you would like to add.
Dad,
I don't think I do.
I don't think we have anything to add.
Thank you. And then, do the trustees feel the need for a discussion here? I know many of you have already asked questions. Okay, I'm generally getting no nods, so I think we all understand. So we have, just to clarify, we have two issues for land use. I think we have 611, which is the special use permit, and 612, which is just an introduction of the ordinance for the liquor license, which we are not voting on tonight. We're just voting on the special use.
So that is correct. So what's up for vote tonight is the special use. There will be, if there's 5 votes in favor of, there will be an ordinance on consent at the next meeting, along which at the same time will be the adoption of the new liquor license ordinance as well.
Okay, so we will be voting on the special use, and just to reiterate, it came with a 3-3 vote from the zoning board, which equates to a negative recommendation. So it will need 5 votes tonight to overturn the recommendation of the zoning board. Could the clerk please call the roll on the motion?
Madam President, before we do that, sorry to interrupt there, Mr. Hallgren. Do we want to include the conditions on the special use that it has to mirror basically the liquor license operation? By doing that would not allow any other type of use, like a restaurant or some other thing that falls into a specialty restaurant at this location. Is my recommendation that we do that to ensure that what is being proposed today is what's going to be allowed at the site.
I would agree. I think most people are not.
Yeah, it looks like there's a consensus, so I will make sure that that is added into the ordinance for the next meeting.
Do we need to make that as a motion?
No, I got the direction I need. You'll vote on the ordinance in 2 weeks. It'll have it in there. That'll be the final. As long as I get the direction now, you'll have a final vote on the ordinance in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And just one question, because it came with us to a vote of 3-2, not 3-3, right?
Oh,
it was a majority vote, but not, and 2 members were absent.
That's
correct. Is that right? Okay.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Great. So, Mr. Hallgren, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Jaya,
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan,
Aye.
Trustee Shepherd,
Aye.
Trustee Dodd,
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy,
Aye.
Trustee Barrow,
Aye.
and President Plunkett.
Aye. The motion is approved. So congratulations. We will be, the ordinance will be, I think, up for adoption in 2 weeks. But I think we're excited about a new kind of business in 4th and Linden.
Thank you.
I think I know who our first meeting is going to be.
The board members.
Do we get a free
Have a party.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, back to land use. Trustee Barrow.
Thank you, President Plunkett. All the remaining items were on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next up is municipal services, I believe. Trustee Sullivan. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm off. Just hold up. 6.2 Finance Committee, Trustee Kennedy.
All items were on the consent agenda.
Okay. 6.3 Administration Committee, Trustee Dodd.
All items were on consent.
Thank you. And now Municipal Service Committee, Trustee Sullivan.
You just wanted to get to talk to stormwater in a drought. So, so excited we have one item this evening. It's item 6.41, which is a presentation on the neighborhood storage park project at Thornwood Park. And I can't believe we're in phase 3. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Berger Raish.
Yes, please.
And Bridget, before you start, if we can just have everyone mute their microphones, just so that the audio is clean. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and good evening, trustees. It's actually bittersweet.
Hold on, Bridget, you're muted.
You're so excited you muted yourself.
I'm just so thankful for your time tonight. We're really at a great point in the Thornwood Park project. And I said it's bittersweet for me because with every meeting means we're so much closer to being done. And this project has been a project of a lifetime to build. So with that, just to kind of put some perspective on what we're going to talk about tonight, we are at the milestone of 65% completion on the design plans. And customary with the other phases, this is a great time to come to you and share our progress on Thornwood Park. And just to let you know, last night we had an open house with the residents of Thornwood Park and the various areas that are part of the storm sewer improvements. And it was a really positive meeting. We got some great feedback. And so far the energy and the all the sentiment surrounding this project is positive, so we're hopeful moving forward. We'll also be presenting a lot of the same material at the park board next Monday, so they'll receive the same information that you're receiving tonight. So bear with me while I share my screen here. All right, we're going to start with a video. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, I'm assuming you all can. So if you have audio on your computer, you might want to turn it up. This video is an overall improvements for neighborhood storage, but also a highlight on Hibbard Park. So with that, I'm going to press play, and it's a little bit hard to hear the audio in the background, but hopefully this will work. Here we go. All right. So this is an overview of what we'll talk about tonight, but again, the focus is really to get into some details on the 65% plan for Thornwood Park. This map is familiar to everybody. Obviously, this is the full completion of neighborhood storage. When it's all complete, this is what our system will look like on the west side. And important to note that this project will protect 98% of vulnerable structures during a 10-year storm. And a 10-year storm is defined as a storm that will have a 10% chance of recurring in any given year. There's a couple things I'd like to just point out on this map that are going to change as we've gone through some early design in Thornwood Park. The first is the optimization areas. So I should take a step back. This is the Thornwood Park main project right up in Kenilworth Gardens. And we have these two optimization areas. We have optimization east and optimization west. The alignments are going to change a little bit, and I'll explain later on in the presentation why that is. But essentially, we're eliminating the sewer on Lake Avenue, and we're eliminating a sewer on Hibbard Road. So I'll, like I said, I'll explain why that is. But so what exactly are we building? We're building over 42 acre-feet of storage, almost 14 million gallons of storage, and 26,000 feet, almost 5 miles of brand new sewer. When we reviewed the budget, you will see that phase 3 at Thornwood Park is the most expensive, and the column on the right helps explain why. There is a significantly more linear footage of large diameter sewer in phase 3 than the other phases combined. And of course, larger the sewer, the more expensive the project. So that's why this 5,000 feet of sewer greater than 42 inches is important to note. It goes without saying that every successful project requires a solid set of engineering plans, and Chris Burke Engineering is on their way to doing that. I think, but what's even more important is the execution of those plans. That's what's going to make or break our project, and that's how we've been successful, I think, to date. So communication is really the key. Our communication plan keeps all the stakeholders informed of the impacts of construction. And I just want to thank Lisa Brock. She's been our project liaison since the first phase. She's also on Central Avenue. She is the interface between the residents and the contractor, making sure all those issues are addressed in a timely manner. So I want to thank Lisa. We also brought her in at very early stage on phase 3 so that she can help guide us through those residents' concerns as we put the plans together. And I also want to note that we've learned a lot during the first couple of phases, and we're applying all that knowledge as we move into phase 3. Phase 1 is 90% complete. I'll just give a quick overview on the 3 phases. So phase 1 is 90% complete. The optimization sewers on Hunter and Washington, that is going to be a summer activity. So those will be starting very shortly when school is out. It has a completion date of August, and the cost for this phase is trending under the awarded amount. For any residents who are on and interested, please note that the intersection of Hunter and Illinois is going to be closed for all traffic from approximately mid-June to mid-August, and that's so that we can build a large diameter sewer starting in that location. And this is where we're at right now with active construction at Hibbard Park. The project is 65% complete. I'm happy to say we're 2 for 2 with vault completion on time. The vault itself was completed the end of April. With the restoration, it was completed in early June. So we're able to get 2 full growing seasons with the newly planted seed. The storm sewer work is ongoing and expected to be completed October 1st, and we are currently trending in line with the awarded contract value. So here we are at Thornwood Park. Again, 4.5 million gallons of stormwater storage up here at the park itself. These are all the sewers associated with the base improvement. So we have new sewers going in on Beechwood, a little tail on 21st Street. There's a couple sections on Hunter Road, Greenwood Avenue, as well as Thornwood Avenue. And then south of Lake, this is where we had an alignment change. Initially, we had the sewer going down Lake Avenue, which would have created a lot of difficulty with traffic control. So the new sewer is actually going to go down Hunter and Schiller Avenue. And we're still able to achieve the same level of service for this area, even with that alignment. The second optimization area on the west side, initially we had a large diameter sewer coming down Hibbard. Again, we're going to eliminate that and put in some underground storage on Washington and Highland. And this slide helps explain why we're doing that. So essentially when we looked at the original hydraulic model, there were 16 structures in that Skokie Boulevard corridor right here. It's actually these townhomes south of the Key Nature Center that are vulnerable to flooding. So Christopher Burke did some value engineering and said, how can we best target that area? And to do that, they did a model that showed if we just install targeted underground storage on Washington and Highland, we're able to protect those 16 structures, eliminate all of the utility conflicts associated with building on a major roadway like Hibbard Road, eliminate all the permitting with the county and IDOT, potential school impacts for Ramona School, and we can save about a little over $1 million. So it's really a win-win. We're achieving the goal that we set out to achieve in a much more efficient manner. So this project, similar to phases 1 and 2, is a major trucking operation. In fact, it will require over 7,000 trucks in order to build Thornwood Park. Unlike Hibbard Park, which is adjacent to a major state road, Thornwood Park is unfortunately in the middle of a residential area, in the middle of Kenilworth Gardens. So in my mind, the most difficult part of this project is getting all that truck traffic into the neighborhood and out of the neighborhood. So we're preparing the residents. Unfortunately, we do have truck routes on Hunter Road, which is a higher volume collector street, as well as Illinois Road, but all that traffic is going to come through Thornwood Avenue. Now, keep in mind that right at around 1.5 inches of rain, water is going to start entering the tank. And just like Hibbard Park, this is a deep vault. So it's got a smaller footprint, a deeper vault, which means we'll have to dewater the bottom portion of the vault. And that's where the pump station comes into play. So we'll have to build a pump station that's underground. It'll be completely inaudible, but it will have a control panel. It'll have a gas backup generator in the event of a power loss. And all of these mechanical components, the level in the tank, the level in the downstream sewers, the pump station and the generator, that'll all be controlled through the village's SCADA system, which will be monitored real time by Mr. Quaffichet and the Water Management Department. Here's a glimpse of what the park will look like from overhead. So this is up on the top of the page is looking north. On the right side of the page is Colgate. On the left side of the page is Dartmouth. And on the south and the bottom of the page is Thornwood Avenue. The red envelope is really the self-contained construction envelope. That's the limits of the construction fencing. All of the work to build the project will be internal to that fence. And you can see, if you follow my cursor, there's kind of this jagged stair alignment all the way around the tank. I'm sorry, around this perimeter. This is actually the limits of the vault itself. So it's the reason we have this kind of unusually shaped perimeter and vault is solely to protect these trees. So all the trees, the beautiful trees at Thornwood Park along the perimeter are going to be protected and saved. And everything that we're doing internal to the park will, again, not impact those trees. There's just one exception. There's one tree down here at the entrance to the park that will be removed. The primary ingress and egress is in through Thornwood Avenue and out through Dartmouth. So the trucks will come in Hunter, turn down Thornwood, come into the park, and then exit Dartmouth south to Thornwood Avenue out to Illinois Road. All of the water, the new storm sewers, so the water will enter and exit through this area as well. And I just want to touch on schedule, because schedule is what's most important in most folks' minds, is how are we going to build this? And the schedule is very similar to Community Playfield, where we wanted to stay away from the school traffic as much as possible. So the baseball season ends May 31st, Memorial Day of next year, and that's when the Park District can turn the park over to the village to start construction. Between Memorial Day and the last day of school, which is about mid-June, the early construction activity will occur. We'll install the fence and the tree protection, the site camera, the vibration monitors, and get ready for construction. As soon as Harper School is out for the summer, that's when the heavy trucking operation will start. Unfortunately, we cannot complete the project before school is back in session in August. It just doesn't give us enough time to build this entire project. So there will be an overlap into September and a little bit into October. What we have done though, we will write it into the construction specifications that the contractor will not be able to run trucks through this area while there's pickup and drop off times. So we intend to separate the school pickup and drop off activity from our construction activity in order to keep everybody safe. This is a little bit more detail on the pump station location and the pipes that we have to build to get the water to and from the actual vault itself. The big question that I'm sure a lot of people have on their minds is, why are you putting all that equipment down in this area? And again, the primary reason is to protect the trees. You know, if we were to tuck that pump station up here in this grove of trees, there would no doubt be impact to those trees, to the root zones, there'd be removals. And even more importantly, we'd have to build a road back here to access the pump station for maintenance purposes. So there's a lot of benefits to having it right off of Thornwood Avenue. It's very easy access, and it's most importantly going to protect as many trees as possible. So the last two slides, we're looking down on Thornwood Park. The next one, we're going to actually stand on Thornwood Avenue and look west, and we're going to turn the park on its side. So we're going to look at it at a profile. Everything above this black line is above grade. So we have a house on Thornwood Avenue and a car driving down the street, and here's the park itself. And then below grade, this is what's happening. This is the function of the stormwater system. So real briefly, what happens, all the stormwater in the Kenilworth Gardens subdivision drains into a trunk sewer on on Hunter Road. When that sewer fills up, currently, it doesn't have anywhere to go. So it will back up into the streets and cause flooding. Once this system is built, when that sewer on Hunter fills up, it'll actually backflow into this large structure here on Thornwood Avenue. And we have this control structure here. This is a weir. Once the water elevation in that Thornwood sewer gets high enough, it'll overtop and then flow directly into the tank. So as it's raining, this is going to fill up. And then at some point when the rain stops and the sensors tell us that there's downstream capacity, then the water is going to flow out of the tank into the pump station and through a force main back into the sewer that it came from. So from here, it'll go back through the normal channels down to Hunter, Lake Avenue, and then out to the stormwater pumping station. This is a quick rendering of what that control center will look like. We have, rather than asphalt or concrete for the service driveway, we're going to put in a turf stone, which is basically a paver with some grass that grows through it. So a little bit of a green component here. We have the controls for the pumps up in this area. All the pumps are below grade. So this is the concrete pad that will house the hatches. So we have access to the pumps themselves. The generator will be in this location. ComEd transformer, and then if the Park District decides to put in irrigation, that equipment will be up in this area. And you can see this isn't a final plan, but we really want to be thoughtful about the landscaping with a combination of shrubs and ornamental trees, and we're taking some resident feedback on what they'd like to see, as well as working closely with the Park District. Budget is looking really good at this point. All of our budgets, we like to go back to the February 2019 conceptual budget. So we're actually a little bit less than where we thought we'd be a couple years ago. And this is all inclusive of optimization, engineering, storm trap, the park amenities. Everything is in this $27 million number, including a pretty healthy contingency at this stage. Typically at 65% design, we might bring the contingency down, but given what we're seeing with the cost of materials and freight, we're leaving a healthy contingency in at this point, just so that we have more certainty as we go into the bidding environment. We don't, I shouldn't say certainty. We don't want any surprises going into the bid. So we're going to keep that contingency high. And then as we get closer to the bid, we can adjust it. We also added some significant items. We are recommending replacing the water main on Schiller. The water main has a history of water main breaks, and because we're reconstructing the road on top of it, we don't want to do that if the utility below grade is poor. Well, we're also building a small pollinator garden at Thornwood Park and resurfacing all of Hunter Road. Park District improvements, the village has a $3.395 million set aside in the intergovernmental agreement, and that's for the items listed at the bottom of the slide. So far, the Park District has committed about $1.2 million toward that. I'll add that the Thornwood Park estimate for $200,000 has still yet to be confirmed by the Park Board. That's something they'll have to talk about in future meetings. But right now we're planning to have irrigation and drainage improvements as part of our bid package if we get the green light from the Park Board. Overall, the budget again is looking really good. We're trending about $3 million under where we were a couple years ago. These costs, again, are inclusive, and as we get to final construction numbers, we're updating this chart. So phase 1A is complete. Those numbers are final. Phase 1 is complete with the exception of the optimization, so that number could fluctuate a little bit. Phase 2 is at budget. Phase 3 is the $27 million we just spoke of. And there's a lot on this slide, but really the point I want to make here is this is the transition. Everything in the red is from preliminary engineering up through 65% design. That is complete. So we're transitioning into the 90% to final plan completion. And when we put a schedule together, we actually work backwards. We know that we have to build this whole project in 2022, and we don't want to build in November. So the last day of construction will be October 31st of 2022. If we work backward, we have to start the storm sewer sometime in March. And in order to do that, we hope to go out to bid in December and award the project in January. Just a brief timeline of the public engagement that we've had. We've had several meetings going back to April of 2019 with the residents, most recently the open house last night, and we'll have several other opportunities in the next few months to again take our final designs back to the resident to get feedback. We also continue with engagement with the school district, the police department, and the Park District staff. So our next steps, we're quickly moving to 90% design on Thornwood Park, and we hope to achieve that in July. We're talking to all of our stakeholders on a regular basis to get their input and feedback as we develop those plans, working with our coordinating agencies on permitting and utilities. We'll host another resident meeting in August, and we'll start the negotiation with Stormtrap, who is our vault manufacturer. We hope to award that in November to make sure production is ready in time for summer construction, and hope to go out to bid in December. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, outstanding job, Bridget. I'm going to not echo it's bittersweet. I think it's more excitement that you got us to this point, and you deserve a lot of credit. And to look at a budget with three numbers that are lower than what we expected, that's a monumental feat. So well done to you and the team. My only question on your slide where you have the timeline,
and I should have asked you this earlier when we talked. I think it was November 9th that is when the storm trap contract approval. When do we have to pay? When do we sort of, when is it, we have to order that and start paying for that? Because this time, obviously, if we start paying for it, we got to, I assume our option is we have to go with this. Does that make sense what I'm asking? When do we have to pay for storm trap?
We pay as they start building it, and it's only a portion. I believe it's only 20, it could be 40% of the production as they make it, and then we pay another percentage at delivery, and then we pay a lump sum at the end of the project. So there are some upfront costs as of, I would say, well, if we award in November, we won't have contracts signed until December. I bet they won't start manufacturing them until January of next year.
Like I said, great job. I mean, I drove by Hibbert Park. It looks green. So it doesn't even look like you were there 2 months ago. So
that's the goal.
Bridget, Trustee Barrow here. I have a question and a request that you clarify something a little bit. And I'd like to just understand better, and I think anyone watching perhaps would be interested in two questions, really. First, the streets that will end up being repaved as a result of this project. Certainly that's Thornwood Avenue between Hunter and Dartmouth, which is certainly the scene of the action. But how much of Hunter Road will be repaved, and how much will there be any repaving do you contemplate of either of Dartmouth or of Thornwood west of the park?
Yes, thank you for the question. The answer is yes. We are paving all of Hunter from Beechwood down to Schiller. So even though the entire Hunter corridor is not getting new sewer, we are going to repave it all. So the portion that's not receiving new sewer, we will supplement through our road program funds. Same with Thornwood Avenue. Thornwood between Hunter and Dartmouth will be paved as part of the project. Thornwood west to Illinois, we will pave the year after.
And Dartmouth itself?
Because we're only really running trucks on that southern tail between our exit out of Thornwood Park down to Thornwood, it's really just a small section. So we will patch that, we'll pave it, but we're not going to pave the entire Dartmouth because I don't believe it is in that poor of condition, but I would have to double check that.
Very good. One more question. First, a comment, really to thank you and your staff for really the extraordinary job you've done in all of these projects. Your engagement with the residents, in this case, also the school and the police, and the involvement of the parents that are all involved in this project is really exceptional. And I think it really contributes to the residents' appreciation for really how thoughtful our government can be when they're doing something of this magnitude. So first, got to get the thank you out. But the second question is, did you contemplate when school is in session, rather than having the trucks exit on Dartmouth and then go south on Dartmouth to get back to Thornwood, to have the trucks exit onto Dartmouth and drive away from Harper towards, go north to Kenilworth, and then west to Locust, and then pick up Illinois?
We did, Trustee Barrow, and the remedy to the concern about trucks and children is that we're not going to allow truck traffic during those high traffic times. But I think more importantly, the teachers rely very heavily on that angled parking on the east side of Dartmouth. So by us taking the truck traffic south, we're able to preserve a majority of that parking from the point of the exit all the way north. All that parking will be preserved. If we were to run trucks to the north, that parking would likely be taken away.
Once again, you've thought of it all. Thank you very much.
I was going to.
President Plunkett, you're muted.
I thought I unmuted myself. Okay. Yes, I would echo what Trustee Sullivan and Barrow said in terms of the thank you and the level of detail, which is very much appreciated. And I'm sure the residents appreciate that too. A quick question on the use of Thornwood Park. Will the tennis courts or the playground on the north end of the park be open during the construction time?
It will. It will. And I forgot to say, this is actually going to be kind of fun because this is the first time we're doing this. We're going to create an official viewing area for any interested parties. So we're going to create an actual open area within the fence. Usually the fence is blacked out because we want to distract from any curious parties. But in this case, there's so much interest in what's going on. We're going to create a viewing area on the north side of the park, kind of adjacent to the playground and the tennis courts. So it'll be, we'll get a lot of visitors.
You might create some future engineers with your.
That's the goal.
Bridget, this is Trustee Dodd. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. First of all, I thank you for this wonderful presentation, like everybody else said. I did have two quick follow-up questions. Can you share with us, you said you've had some discussions with obviously Harper Elementary School. Can you just share a little bit of background about any concerns they might have about the fact that it's not being completed by the time school starts, and anything we should be aware of, or how you feel it's going?
Sure. We've had 2 formal meetings with them, and it's all very constructive discussion about the traffic patterns of the kids and where the crossing guards are located. And it's really been a plan that we've built in uniform with the school district. So in fact, at the last meeting we had, they asked that we present to the school board at some point later in fall so that everybody's aware the plan to protect the children. And I didn't have it in the slide presentation tonight because I wanted to keep things a little bit short, but we do have an actual drawing exhibit that will be on the website that shows all the school walking routes. And if there is an impact by construction, we have a temporary route. We'll relocate a guard if necessary, and we'll make sure that there is very defined safe corridors to get children from the neighborhoods to the school. And the school districts are very, very appreciative of that.
And I can't remember, Bridget, where Harper Elementary School is, or any of the elementary schools. Are the drop-offs only in the morning and in the afternoon? Do they have any midday drop-offs?
I believe they do. Yes, they have several throughout the day.
And so you're aware of all those?
We are. And as far as if your question is how are we going to build this project if we have to stop every couple hours while school is coming in and out, it doesn't mean the contractor can't work internal to the site. They can still continue with their production. They just have to plan their day and manage their trucks so that they're not coming in and out during those times.
Yep. Okay, sounds awesome. And then my second question was just, do you mind pulling up that slide again that showed kind of where the pump station was and the landscaping plan that you're doing? And the reason why is I know that initially some of the residents, surrounding that area had some concerns around the actual pump station and just, and I wanted to just get a better sense of how big is that, area? I just don't have a good, I can see what you're doing and it looks beautiful. I just don't know, is that like I just don't know how large it is, to be honest.
Sure. So
not this one. The next, not this one, I'm sorry, the one where you have, keep going, this one, thank you.
Go back, this one?
Go, that one, yes.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to show you on this drawing, it's all right, okay, so it's all right in this area. So Trustee Dodd, if you were to go stand out on Thornwood Park and look to the west, it kind of lines up with the edge of, first base on the baseball field right here. So it doesn't go very deep at all. It's all very self-contained.
And so is it like a 10 feet by 10 feet? Is it 40 by 40?
I have Darren
You
Olson.
understand what I'm asking? I'm just going to.
I am, yeah.
I'm just more curious, like, how big is it? I know some of the residents have raised some concerns about these panels and this, you know, this. And I'm just trying to get a sense of how large is that space relative to the entire park, I guess.
Sure. I would be guessing maybe 50 by 50, but Darren Olson, if you want to jump on, if you have a measurement, that would be great.
That's
Sure.
just
So
an
I can
estimate
provide a
was
little
fine.
bit of guidance. It is, and hi, I'm Darren Olson with Christopher Burke Engineering. I'm working on the design of this and have for the previous 2 phases as well. So thank you for having me tonight. So the probably the largest component of this is the gray area that you'll see there, but that's actually at grade. So that's where the pumps are beneath that. That I believe is in the range of about 22 by 22 feet. But again, it's flat. You can see we've got a driveway access. We go down to the picture below. We've got a driveway access, and so the width of this drive lane is, I think, about 15 or 16 feet. And looking at the dimensions there, it's maybe 40 to 50 feet north into the park.
So maybe 50 by 50.
Correct. With yes,
including the landscaping. Yeah.
Yes, landscaping kind of fluffs it out a little bit, but that's not a very technical term, but yeah, that's about a good size.
Oops.
Did that answer your question, Kathy?
Yes, thanks. That's all I had. Thank you. That was really helpful. I just wanted to kind of have a sense in case somebody asked, but this is really exciting. I agree.
Any other trustees have any comments or questions?
You know, I'd like to ask one follow-up question, if I might, President Plunkett. Bridget, where will the trucks assemble that are waiting to come into the site? You've described several hundred trucks, and that, I don't know how many that turns into per day, but presumably it's a lot. Where do they wait before they enter the park to drop off or pick up, whatever?
Trustee Barrow, that might be the $1 million question. It's something that we struggle with because there is no good place in this neighborhood to stage trucks, especially the very, very large storm trucks. So, a couple of the ideas that I've had is we may need to keep them off site. And believe it or not, the contractor used Skokie Boulevard, the center median in Skokie, to stage those trucks as they're waiting to get into the site. We may need to coordinate something like that to keep them off site, because we fully recognize the streets in Kenilworth Gardens are too narrow to be blocking them with these large trucks. So it's a work in progress.
Thank you. Yeah, at least 2 of the trustees live in Kenilworth Gardens, so we're following this quite avidly.
Understood.
I had a quick question, Bridget. Thank you very much. For those of us new to the board, it's a very useful presentation. Thank you. Great to see the budget numbers, but as we all know, the cost of materials is fast at the moment, and inflation is rising potentially. What's your level of concern, and how prepared should we be for an overage on some of the work that has yet to be bid out?
Well, that's exactly why we're keeping a 20% contingency on the price tag at this point. So I'm confident that we will, and we've been talking to contractors as we go through the design to get what the current pricing is on commodities like ductile iron and some of our more expensive product that we're putting in the ground. So we are adjusting our estimates real time based on what we're seeing in the market right now. And we'll continue to do that until we go out to bid. But in the meantime, to cover that uncertainty between now and December, the 20% contingency is really going to cover anything that could happen between now and then. So hopefully, our goal is always, again, not to have any surprises when we open bids. So we'd like to stay at that 27 million or below.
Any more questions? I should open this up if there's any member of the audience, either connected through Microsoft Teams or watching on YouTube Live. If they would like to make a comment at this point, now would be a good time. Mr. Ortega, any comments via YouTube Live?
No, there are no comments.
Okay, and I don't see anybody here on Microsoft Teams. So thank you, Bridget. That is very informative, and it's really great to have these presentations for the board, as well as the presentations that you're giving to the public, which is the one Thornwood Park. The communication is really important, and we all appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, so back to you, Trustee Sullivan.
Unfortunately, stormwater no longer drives the crowds to our meetings. All three other items were approved on consent.
Thank you. Moving right along then to Public Safety, Trustee Shepherd.
No report.
Okay. Judiciary Committee, Trustee Jaya.
No report.
Okay. Reports from special committees. There are no reports. New business, no new business for tonight. So I think we're ready to adjourn our final remote meeting. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Could the clerk please call the roll on the motion to adjourn?
Trustee Jaya,
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan,
Aye.
Trustee Shepherd,
Aye.
Trustee Dodd,
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy,
Aye.
Trustee Barrow,
Aye.
and President Plunkett.
Aye. Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Right all.
Hands
See
in 2
you.
weeks.
In person.
Yeah.